Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Peace Break session. So, in case you haven't been with us, our Intro to Meditation Finding Your Center sessions, such as today, take place every Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and Thursday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. If you can't make it for these, we also have 30-minute meditation sessions every day from 7 to 7:30. So today, we will have a meditation, a guided meditation, and a short wisdom talk given by Ven.Nicholas Thanissaro. And today's topic is meditation, problem solving, and the new age. Before we begin our session with Ven.Nicholas, we would like to just remind everyone to enjoy this long holiday weekend if you do have it off, and to take a few moments tomorrow to send loving kindness to those who have served in honor of Memorial Day. So by sending loving kindness, you can take a few moments to close your eyes, think of good deeds and happy moments in your lives, and try to share this feeling with those around you, with the little organisms in your surrounding environment, and try to spread this feeling of love and giving and happiness beyond. If you have people in mind, you can send it to them. It's a way to literally just spread good feelings, and it's very easy to do. So before we begin meditation, we'd also like to invite you to just stretch and relax a little bit. Today we have the wonderful Boris, who will be helping us get comfortable and do a little bit of yoga. And so if you are ready, I now turn it over to Boris.
Hello, good morning, happy Sunday, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Sukita, and I like the idea of spreading the loving kindness to your loved ones or people you're thinking about, and also looking forward to the topic problem solving in the modern world through meditation. Sounds interesting. All right, well, let's begin with some stretching to get ready for the meditation today. Let's start by bringing your hands to the center of your body, just right in front of your belly. Close your eyes and observe your breathing. The rise and fall of your belly, the inhales and exhales. Where the inhale changes to the exhale, that's the center point, the peace point, right in the center of your body. All right, open your eyes, bring your palms together at heart center, and let's begin with some side bends. Inhale, reach your arms up high. Exhale, side bend. Reach up high as you bend to the side, lengthen the whole side body. You can look up too. Find comfort in the pose, stretching and relaxation. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, other side. You can look up if you like. Feel the stretch along the whole side of your body. Feel your feet firmly grounded. and extending all the way through your fingertips. Inhale, reach back up. Exhale, side bend. Every time, the stretch becomes a little bit easier, and without noticing or without even trying much, you'll get just a little bit deeper into the stretch. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, side bend. Stay here for a couple breathers. On the inhales, you lift. On the exhales, you relax into the pose. Okay, one more time. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, side bend. Wherever you feel tension in your body, that's just normal, and that goes away over time. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, side bend. All right, that was the last one here. Reach up high, exhale, bring your palms together at heart center, close your eyes. Observe the changes in your body. Where you stretched, where your muscles get activated and able to relax now, feeling looser. Feeling blood flow and observing the difference in your posture. All right, open your eyes. We'll go to the back bends. So inhale, reach up high. Exhale, back bends. Bend your elbows. Look up high. And back bend slightly, as long as you feel comfortable in the pose. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, palms to heart center. Let's do that again. Inhale, reach up high. Exhale, back bend. Bend your elbows. Look up high, up and back. Stay firmly grounded. Lift from your sternum and relax into the pose. Inhale, reach up high. Exhale, bring your palms together at heart center. We'll do this one more time. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, back bend. Stay tall as you fold, as you bend back into the pose. Inhale, reach up. Exhale. Bring your palms together at heart center. Close your eyes. The back bending poses are very energizing. Sometimes you might get a little bit dizzy, so you have to be careful how far you go into the back bends and slowly acclimate to it. But it really opens up your body and gets you ready for the meditation. Observe your spine, your back, neck. Trying to align everything. All right, open your eyes. Let's do a side twist. Inhale, bring your hands out to the side. Exhale, side twist. Stay firmly grounded with your feet. Lift throughout your body as you twist. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist to the other side. Same here. Stay firmly grounded with your feet. Extend through your whole body from the ground up. Reach through your fingertips. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist other side. Find the balance. Relax your gaze. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, twist other side. And relax your breathing too. Inhale, center. One more time each side. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. Exhale, twist. Inhale. Bring your palms together at heart center and close your eyes. Observe your arms, your shoulders, your back. The blood flow through your whole body. From your feet, through the top of your head, your hands, your eyes. Wherever you might still hold any small amount of tension in your body, you can just observe it and let it go. And the same during the meditation. Whatever happens, you observe it and come back to the guidance of the meditation and to yourself. All right, open your eyes. That was a quick 10 minutes yoga prep for the meditation, and today it's Venerable Nicholas. Enjoy the meditation very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Boris, for that. And just before we start, I would just like to remind you that if you have any questions for Venerable Nicholas, please feel free to leave it in the Facebook Live chat for Peace Point Meditation or the Peace Point Meditation YouTube channel. We are live streaming on both platforms, and any questions you may have, Venerable Nicholas will be made aware of, and he can respond to them next time he does his intro to meditation session. And just a disclaimer that these videos for Venerable Nicholas are pre-recorded, as is his preference. But we invite you to join us anyway, and I hope you have a great time.
Welcome back to the 5th online episode of Live Sunday Peacetime, hosted by Peacepoint on alternating Sunday mornings by myself, Ven.Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and a quarter long and will consist of about a 30-minute Dhamma talk, 20 minutes of meditation, and 20 minutes conclusion, answers to viewer questions submitted in advance, and the usual news. Last time you saw me, we looked at aim in life and the 5 hindrances, basically how to reclaim time for our meditation and overcome obstacles as they arise in our meditation. The topic for the Dhamma talk today will be meditation, problem solving, and the New Age. Again, this session I would encourage you to send in any questions that you have to the DIMC family line group, post them on the Peacepoint Meditation YouTube page, or send them to me personally so that I can have a shot at answering them next time round. I know last time it was pretty difficult to understand anything I said well enough to ask any questions because of technical problems with the transmission, but hopefully this week will be a little more comprehensible. So let's start by looking at how to apply meditation to solving different sorts of problems in life. Indeed, there are many different sorts of problems in life, both material and spiritual. Different sorts of problems need to be dealt with in different ways. But if we know only material solutions to the problems, we will be limited in our range of solutions when it comes to solving them. As a meditator, we have the advantage over most people because potentially we have a larger toolbox when it comes to dealing with problems. Some people think that meditation is escapism, turning your back on problems instead of facing up to them. So the first myth that we need to dispel is the idea that by meditating we are living naively in the world where we fail to take responsibility for the problems around us. As we meditate more, if we do it correctly, it should become increasingly apparent how hard it is to overlook our social context. The 17th century English poet, John Donne, once reminded us that no man is an island entire of itself. These famous words must ring in the ears of many who wonder why generations of meditators have become recluses or hermits, turning their backs on society in quest of transcendental freedom. Of course, isolating oneself from the chaotic scrabble of the rat race increases the opportunity to reflect. But ideally, meditators also need to have ways to give back to society and remain connected. Obviously, if we take on too many problems from other people, we will be like a non-swimmer diving into the water to save a drowning person. That means instead of one person drowning, 2 will drown instead. Or like a pauper trying to help another person who is in debt. Instead of one person being in debt, 2 will now be bankrupted. So, when will we be able to help others? Do we have to wait to become enlightened first? I would propose that we don't need to wait that long, but we should be at the point in our meditation where we have progress, both to the point where we know ourselves and also love ourselves enough to know our limits. For example, knowing how the limits of temptation or provocation, where those red lines lie, so that we can find ourselves in a situation without losing our temper or our peace of mind. Besides knowing our limits, we also have to know the nature of the problem and be able to discern and tell the real root of the problem. An important first step is to be able to identify what category a problem belongs to so that you can deal with it in an appropriate way. Because not every sort of problem requires meditation to solve it. In this respect, I would like to propose 7 different categories of problems. Material or linear problems, problems of which you are a part, vicious circles, attitude problems, problems better prevented, problems requiring loving kindness, and problems you can't solve on your own. So let's look first at material or linear problems. These are problems with single causes leading to a chain of problematic outcomes. It could be something as simple as a printer running out of ink, where the problem is solved simply by replacing the cartridge. You might ask yourself what role, if any, meditation might have in implementing the solution. But even when solutions are obvious, they may not be easy and may require perseverance and courage. In the midst even of a simple national or international crisis, the experience of suffering may affect different people differently. Some people may be devastated emotionally by the crisis. Some people may carry on with their lives without so much as batting an eyelid, in spite of all the fighting going on around them. If you are a meditator, you have more potential to guard the state of your mind, not to be shaken by paranoia as the chaos becomes rife. Being upset about a situation usually does not help to ameliorate the situation, so you need to insulate yourself emotionally. On the contrary, when other people are put under stress, they may react in strange ways, such as overeating, undereating, or drowning their problems with liquor. This weakens the health of the person concerned, making them less able to deal rationally with the problem. Thus, whenever you are put under stress, always make sure that the situation doesn't affect the moderation of your normal eating habits, and try to deal with problems sensibly instead of emotionally. A second sort of problem, more complex than linear problems, are problems where we are part of the problem. To give an example of such a problem, there was once a lady who was having problems in her marriage. Her husband would go out late at night drinking, and if she complained, his response would be to come home even later and even drunker. Thus, in desperation, not being able to see a solution to the problem, she went to see the monks at the temple, with the hope that if she could get some holy water from the monks, she could sprinkle the holy water on the source of the problem, and like waving a magic wand, the holy water would make her problems miraculously go away. The first monk she met was perhaps more perceptive about the lady's problem than she was. The monk told the lady, "I will give you some holy water, but only on one condition. For the holy water to be effective, after you have said your prayers, you need to hold this holy water in your mouth." The lady thanked the monk and decided to try out the holy water that very night. Shortly after midnight, as soon as she heard the garden gate opening, she quickly said her prayers and took a gulp of holy water in her mouth. Of course, with her mouth full of water, she could not say much. In fact, she could not say anything at all. When her husband came into the house and saw his wife had waited up for him, but had nothing to say to him, he merely acknowledged her and went to bed. The next night it was the same, and with the holy water in her mouth, strangely it appeared to the husband that apart from saying nothing, his wife had a slight smile on her face. Little by little, the husband's behavior started to improve, with him starting to come home from the bar earlier than before and drinking less, until before long the husband and wife regained their sense of being a happy couple again. If you ask whether this solution was due to the miraculous power of the holy water, even with wishful thinking you can probably tell that there is probably a much simpler explanation. This is not to say that the husband was blameless, because going out late at night and wasting the family income on liquor is never justified. However, if you ask what is the way out of the problem, the wife had more of a chance to transform the situation for the better than the husband. The problem was that the wife was previously too critical in the things that she said, a problem that was later solved dramatically by her inability to speak with her mouthful of holy water. What this story illustrates for our purposes is that it is often difficult to solve problems when we ourselves are part of the problem. To be able to step back from the problem and see where we fit in and make changes to ourselves for the better is always difficult. However, if we are meditators, we will be better able to get an objective view about how we fit into the problems we are experiencing, so that we can extricate ourselves from our part of the problem. I should add that it's always easier to adjust ourselves to a problem than it is to get other people to change. Another sort of problem that is particularly difficult to solve without thinking outside the box are problems that feed into themselves or act as vicious circles. In this picture, you can see a strange perspective of a building with stairs on the roof. The people who go up the stairs keep on going up, but eventually, having climbed a full circuit of the stairwell, they end up back where they started. The people who are going down the stairs keep on going down, but eventually, having descended a full circuit of the stairwell, they also end up back where they started. Unfortunately, the ascenders and the descenders only ever look at their feet, so they don't notice that they're getting nowhere. The only person who realizes what's going on is the person down on the balcony who has stood back from the crowd. This person is equivalent to the meditator who can see the bigger picture by standing outside it. Once they have seen what is happening, they can start to find the beginning and the end of the problem. The vicious circle category is particularly relevant to situations where violence escalates. The temptation in a crisis situation is always to blame the other party for starting the conflict. And before long, we find ourselves slipping into the mindset that you need to kill a perceived enemy before they kill you. If everyone were to think like this, it would escalate every conflict situation. Thus, the starting point for not exacerbating the situation is to avoid harming others. In this connection, you need to have a great deal of patience. Patience that can only come as a result of meditation. It is said that to be patient in the face of hardship and suffering, such as illness, is still easier than the patience needed to avoid conflict. You end up thinking, if you can't beat them, you may as well join them. After all, wouldn't you be at a serious disadvantage as the only person on the battlefield who's a pacifist in the middle of a whole crowd of lethal warriors? However, in terms of a fruitful solution to suffering on the collective level, it is essential that at least one individual makes a decision to turn against the tide of aggression and to reverse the vicious cycle of aggression. There is no way the situation will change for the better for as long as no one thinks to reverse the cycle of violence. It always takes two to start a fight, so if one side stops fighting, in fact the fight is over. It's just like a tug of war, where both teams pull as hard as they can, and neither team can make any headway. If in a tug of war one of the teams decides to let go of the rope, the equivalent of one side in a conflict forgiving the other and stopping fighting, all the tension goes out of the situation. Thus, no matter how extreme the situation, you must never try to harm anyone else, or even speak in a way that is going to aggravate the situation. As meditators who are aware of the real causes of degradation in society, shouldn't we be the first to start dealing with the problems? Shouldn't we be out there engaging with social problems? The reality of meditators is that the more they see of the problems, the more time they need to spend in isolation training themselves and not getting caught up in the problems. In fact, to make a difference to a situation, the problem solver needs a peaceful place to where they can retreat in order to recharge their batteries. When exposed to challenging situations, everyone has a real need for the time and opportunity to evaluate and reflect on their situation with wisdom and impartiality, instead of being pulled into the turmoil of the situation. Without such a quiet place or the necessary downtime, you will miss the opportunity to assess the limits of your own ability in any situation, and the outcome could be disastrous. Fourth category of problems that I'd like to deal with is the problem of attitudes. By meditating, you can change yourself to see the world in a more positive light. For example, to count your blessings or realize that there is something or someone else always worse off than you. You can effect a change of attitude, like in the example of the Chinese woman with the two sons I mentioned in a previous session. Some people can get into a fight even over differences of point of view. One person, for example, who stands above this figure and insists that it is a 6. Another person standing below the same figure looks at it and insists that it is a 9. Just because they have a different point of view, they could very easily get into a disagreement. This is just for a very simple example, but you can imagine how much more potential there is for conflict when you're talking about any subjective opinions. For example, whether to rush in and change a situation with people quoting the proverb, "Make hay while the sun shines," or those who would prefer to hold off and size up the situation a little longer, also quoting the proverb, "More haste makes less speed." There is always a way to avoid problems originating from the difference of point of view, which is for each person to think, speak and act from the center of their body, and it will allow every person to be on the same page when observing the world. This does not necessarily mean seeing the world in an overly optimistic way, but it helps everyone to see the world according to its reality. For certain categories of problem, the best solution is that the problem doesn't happen in the first place, where prevention is a lot better than a cure. Suppose you get your car stolen. It would be normal to feel that you are the main victim of the crime. However, that your car is missing because of one person in society who has compromised their conscience and become a thief is not the end of the damage caused. The crime ends up making victims of the whole of society. First of all, society has to pay the police overtime for them to go out and investigate the extra crime. That leaves less money in the government budget that can be put into things like schools and hospitals. As a result of their investigations, the police may or may not be able to recover your car, and the car may or may not be a total loss. If it is totaled, your insurance premium next year will be higher. If the police catch the thief, then society has to pay the salaries of all the judges, court staffers, and jury. If the thief is convicted, then society has to pay for incarceration, which is about $100 a day in a federal penitentiary, multiplied by 365, and by the number of years they serve their sentence. It is society, or you, the taxpayer, who picks up the tab. The cost is high because every jail has to be up to the standard of the Bill of Human Rights. However, for all the correctional effort, the prisoner may not be discouraged from reoffending. In fact, they may be persuaded to become a hardened criminal when they meet other car thieves inside who can exchange tips on how to commit Grand Theft Auto without getting caught. When they get out of jail, apart from the taxpayer having to continue to pay the salaries of probation officers, the ex-con now has a network of savvy friends from inside. In the end, the criminal justice system does not bring much satisfaction to you, the victim of the car theft, who has now got a wrecked car, a higher insurance premium, higher tax rates, and less government money for social services. Unfortunately, the logic of the justice system is that the victim gets the satisfaction of revenge on the victim. But as you can see, the satisfaction is pretty limited and comes at a high price. Thus, for certain categories of problems, it is a huge advantage for society if the problem never happens in the first place, so the penal system does not have to be brought into play. This role of keeping good people good, instead of letting them slip into the twilight zone of criminality, is another important place where meditation has a role in solving social problems. It may not be as spectacular as clearing up the mess after crimes have happened, but it sustains the harmony and well-being already present in society for the long term. A sixth category of problem is where anger needs to be diffused by the spreading of loving kindness. As meditators, it makes sense to be selective about who we choose to give our help and support to. For example, the poor and needy, and those who we might not want to help. For example, a drunken tramp who will spend everything you give him on more whiskey. It is right to be choosy and selective about who we give to. Friendliness, however, is something that we should try to emanate towards all people and all sentient beings, without exception. The fruit of spreading loving kindness towards others without exception is very beneficial both to ourselves and others. It will allow you to sleep peacefully at night, have sweet dreams, wake up in happiness, have a bright complexion, be endearing to others, and to make fast progress in your own meditation. Some people start with friendliness towards themselves and later spread friendliness in ever-widening circles, as you can see on the diagram. This is the Theravada order of doing things. Alternatively, we can start by spreading friendliness selflessly to others without limits, until eventually you can no longer differentiate between yourself and others, at which point you will come across your true self inside. This would be the Mahayana order of doing things. Both of the methods described are effective ways of bringing the mind to a standstill. Those who are adept in seeking the best available from each tradition, that means both Theravada and Mahayana, will restrict themselves neither to one sort of practice or the other. Of course, you need to choose one or other starting point, but after you become familiar with both routes to cultivating loving-kindness, if you know the nature of your mind at any particular moment, you can adapt your practice to suit the needs of your mind at that time. Spreading loving-kindness is useful if you realize that there are anger issues within yourself that need to be resolved, or anger around you which you cannot deal with in a more direct way. In practice, you can expand the well-being of meditation either as a visualization or as a feeling of well-being. You should expand your mind outwards as a sphere of brightness or a feeling of well-being, always from a point centered in the middle of your body. You spread the sphere of your loving kindness in increasingly larger circles around yourself to the room, the house, the neighborhood, the town, the country, the continent, and eventually to the whole world. You can practice such loving-kindness meditation for 5 minutes at the end of your normal meditation if you like, or if you find that your mind is unyielding on any particular day, you might like to start your practice by practicing loving-kindness meditation for 5 minutes even before you start your normal practice. Finally, I would like to introduce you to a category of problems identified by the way you need to rely on other people to help you solve it. It is the sort of problem you cannot solve successfully on your own. In some cases, this might be something as simple as moving a piano, but at other times it is to do with complex social problems. Some social problems are no more than the sum of the individual suffering of the people in that society. The type of suffering that seems to be experienced en masse by the whole society may simply be the projection of suffering by many individuals with the same plight. However, in other cases, individual problem solving is not sufficient. You need to be able to use solutions at the social level to bolster individual consensus. At such times, a top-down effort is a powerful way to make a difference. Thus, if you are to be the first brave one to make the decision to be non-aggressive, you need to use your wits. You don't just want to martyr yourself. Your decision to turn against the tide ought to be taken at a time in the conflict where there is a lull in the fighting. You should take this opportunity to consult with the rest of the members of the society or the two opposing armies to get something down on paper. Agree to a ceasefire or get an agreement formed at a social level, so that if tomorrow they wake up in a bad mood, they won't go back to fighting all over again. As a meditator, you ought to use such things as regulations, rules, or treaties to your advantage to help encourage non-aggression at the individual level, to become more widespread at a social level, and at the same time to reinforce your own personal commitment. The success of organizations such as the United Nations is an example of successful problem solving at the social level of operation rather than the personal level. People must adopt a common set of rules and regulations, and these can be used to enhance and encourage personal commitment at the overall level. So if you are an adept meditator and you work your way to a level where you can start to influence others to reach consensus, this is a useful way for solutions to trickle down to the grassroots level. The same principle also applies when you cannot afford just to do good deeds all by yourself, but you should encourage those around you to be good as well. For example, if you are a good person but you live in a neighborhood full of drug dealers, then before long the drug-related issues are going to end up on your doorstep as well, even though you might not be directly involved in those illicit activities. You cannot afford just to turn a blind eye, but as well as being a good person yourself, if you don't want to move to a new neighborhood, you should do what you can to encourage your neighbors to take up more honest livelihoods or to get themselves in rehab. Some people asked how they can use meditation to solve their problems, and my advice generally is that you should not just sit down with your eyes closed and obsess about your problem, but in your regular meditations perhaps entertain the relevant problem at the back of your mind. Often in the space of the meditation a solution will come to you as you're meditating, which will be a much more creative solution than you could access if you were just to think about the problems in a linear way. Often, if the problem is in the category of attitudes, you may find that what you originally thought was a problem at the beginning of your meditation actually no longer seems problematic by the end of your meditation. So now, having seen the value of meditation, particularly loving-kindness meditation in solving problems, we come to a time for some meditation for ourselves. So if you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my instructions, then we'll do about 20 minutes of meditation together. So if you'd like to start by finding a comfortable position for yourself in meditation, with your right leg on your left leg, your right hand on your left hand, with the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands palm upwards on your lap. Find a position for yourself by which you feel alert and yet relaxed, not leaning too far forward nor too far back, not leaning to the right nor to the left. Find a position of poise for yourself. Make sure your eyes are only very gently closed. Never squeeze your eyes closed, but close your eyes gently in the same way you would close your eyes to go to sleep. Make sure there is no heaviness on your eyelids. If you notice that your eyes are closed too tightly, or if there is any heaviness on your eyelids, you may need to open your eyes and close them again more gently. Once your body is completely relaxed, you can turn your attention to relaxing the mind. If you like, you may like to think of all the merits which you have done in your past, whether it be the merits of generous deeds for the benefit of society around you, donations to the temple, offering of robes, keeping the precepts purely, even meditation and chanting in your daily life. But if you think about all the merits you have performed, in the end it will bring you a feeling of joy and happiness in the mind, as if the merit moves you to the extent that you feel refreshed inside. You should cherish such a feeling of happiness in your mind, just for a few moments, as if all the happiness seems to come from the center of our body. And when we feel relaxed, both in body and in mind, very gently, using no effort at all, we allow our attention to settle and to center to a point in the middle of our stomach, as if in the middle of our stomach was just an empty space. Maintain your mind at the center of the body, observing as continuously as you can for as long as you can. Keep your mind always at the center of whatever arises there, at the center of the bright sphere of light, or at the center of the Buddha image inside yourself, if that's what you prefer, until eventually there are no remaining thoughts in the mind anymore, and the mind can come to what we call a standstill at the center of the body. A standstill means that the mind comes to rest inside the body, without any thinking anymore. Some people think that the mind is nothing without thinking. But in fact, in your meditation you will find out that the mind without thought is much more powerful than the mind caught up in concepts. The mind which is free of all thoughts can start to draw upon consciousness at a deeper level. Consciousness, which we call the gut feeling of the mind, consciousness, which we call the inner wisdom of the mind. Once we switch on to these things, then it will be like a light within ourselves, which illuminates and literally sheds light on the mysteries of the world around us. Because wherever there is light, there is knowledge. Wherever there is knowledge, no ignorance can creep in. All the other things, whether it is greed, fear, hatred or delusion, no longer have a place to hide themselves. Because once we have understood the reality of the world through inner experience, no one can persuade us to understand the world otherwise. Because we have already seen the nature of the world for ourselves. So now for a few more moments in silence, each to their own meditation, cultivating the mind at the center by the means of your bright object and the sound of the mantra if necessary, until we come to the appropriate time. Today, as we meditate, we're going to look at the important practice of spreading loving kindness. Because according to the Buddhist scriptures of the Anguttara Nikaya's Ekadasaka Nipata, spreading loving kindness has the following 11 benefits. It allows us to sleep in happiness, wake in happiness, gives us freedom from nightmares, makes us endearing to humans and non-humans alike, affords us protection by guardian angels, protects us against fire, poison and weapons, facilitates our attainment in meditation, and gives us a radiant complexion. It protects us from senile dementia, and if at the end of our life we have still not attained enlightenment, we will attain the Brahma world. For loving kindness, it's important always to keep your mind at a standstill at the center of the body, as continuously as you can, for as long as you can, without letting your mind wander anywhere else. If you find your mind is attracted away by the sounds around you, sensations in your body, or thoughts in your head, as soon as you realize, always bring your mind back again to the center of the body and continue as before. Cultivate your mind in this way, as continuously as you can, for as long as you can, with or without the mantra, depending on your chosen style. Our mind remains always at the center of the body, at a standstill at the center, whatever inner experience we have attained for ourselves. For some people it will be like a clear, bright sphere of light at the center of the body. For other people, it will be like a clear Buddha image at the center of the body. For others still, it may be like a feeling of warmth or well-being at the center of the body. Whatever sort of inner experience we have attained for ourselves, we place our attention very gently at the center of that experience, at the very center of the inner experience within ourselves, touching gently with the same lightness as a feather floating down to touch on the surface of some water, so lightly that the feather doesn't even break the surface of the water. In the same way, we touch our attention at the center of the inner experience within ourselves. We touch our mind at the center with just the right amount of attention. What you will soon find is that the inner sphere of the mind will gradually expand outwards in size, expanding outwards in size until it is the same size as the whole of your body, as if we were sitting inside a sphere of our own well-being or a sphere of our own light. And we make the wish that may we ourselves be well and happy, may we be free from all suffering. And touching our mind again at the center of the body, the sphere of well-being or the sphere of light spreads outwards beyond our own body, spreading outwards in all directions, just like the moonlight shines outwards from the full moon in the night sky, or just like a block of ice spreads coolness in all directions around itself into the surrounding atmosphere. In the same way, we spread our loving kindness in all directions around ourselves, spreading the sphere of loving kindness around ourselves outwards into the room in which we are sitting for meditation, making the wish that may all beings here in this room be well and happy, be free of all suffering. And we spread our loving kindness further still, spreading it outwards from the center of the body to encapsulate the whole of the building in which we are sitting for meditation, with the wish that may all beings in this building be well and happy, be free of all suffering. And now we spread our loving kindness further outwards still, in all directions around, into the neighborhood around us. Again, with the wish that may all beings here in this neighborhood be well and happy, be free of all suffering. And we spread our loving kindness further outwards, in all directions all around, into the whole of the city around us. If you find it easier, you can imagine it as a map seen from above. Then imagine the city so. Spread loving kindness outwards to cover the whole of the map of the city in all directions all around, so that there is no part of the city not touched by the coolness and radiance of loving kindness, again making the wish that may all living beings here in this city be well and happy, be free from all suffering. And we spread our loving kindness further outwards, beyond the city limits, to the whole of the country, outwards to the very borders of the country in all directions all around, spreading loving kindness without exceptions to the very borders of our country in all directions all around, again making the wish that may all beings in this country be well and happy, and be free of all suffering. Now we spread our loving kindness outwards to all the neighboring countries, all the neighboring countries all around, spreading loving kindness in all directions to all the living beings without exception, again with the wish that may all these living beings be well and happy, be free from all suffering. And now we spread our loving kindness outwards again to the whole of the continent around us, every country on this continent, so that our loving kindness spreads its coolness and radiance to every country on this continent, again with the wish that may every living being here on this continent be well and happy, be free of all suffering. And now we spread our loving-kindness further outwards still, to every continent of the world, whether it be Asia, Europe, Africa, North and South America, Australia or Antarctica, so that there is no corner of the world not touched by the radiance and coolness of our loving-kindness. Spreading our loving-kindness to every place on the surface of our planet. Again, with the wish that, may every living being without exception, whether on the land, in the air or in the sea, be well and happy, be free from all suffering. May all living beings be able to coexist in peace and harmony, so that true peace may prevail on our planet. And we spread our loving-kindness in all directions all around, outwards into the universe, to the front and to the back, to the right and the left, above and below, putting our loving-kindness outwards into the universe around us, with the wish that, wherever there may be living beings, may they too be touched upon by our coolness and radiance given by our loving-kindness. In such a way, we spread our loving-kindness without limits and without exceptions, outwards into the universe, the galaxies, and the cosmos around us. Long ago, in the time before the Buddha, there was a hermit called Kapila, who used to retire to the seclusion of the forest for meditation. It was his habit to favor the practice of meditation on loving-kindness, and this he would practice on a regular basis, by day and by night. Whenever his mind was at ease, he would spread loving-kindness facing east, with the intention that, may all living beings in the direction in front of me, even from the smallest creatures, whether 2-footed, 4-footed, with many legs or no legs at all, in the eastern quarter, be pervaded by my loving-kindness, spread with the purity of my mind. May all these beings enjoy happiness and be free from all suffering. The next day, he might spread loving-kindness in the same way to the western quarter, the northern quarter, the southern quarter, upwards or below. He would spread loving-kindness in this way in all directions, consistently and regularly, until it became his habit. Whenever he slept in happiness, as if slipping into deep meditation. It would bring him joy the whole of the time, and he would have a dreamless sleep. If he ever dreamed, it would be of auspicious things. On waking, he would feel refreshed, free of sleepiness. He always had a very radiant complexion because of his practice, and even if there was danger in his midst, it could never harm him. He was loved and respected by men, angels, and the forest creatures alike. He was able to enter upon meditation easily and attain the absorptions quickly, his mind coming to a standstill swiftly, because he was able to let go of external events easily, bearing no anger or grudges towards anyone. His mind was bright at the center of his body, brighter than the sun at midday. As a result of his practice, the forest became abundant with fruit, and as soon as animals which were sworn enemies, like deer and tigers, came into the vicinity of the forest, miraculously they were able to coexist in harmony, because even their minds changed to become filled with loving-kindness towards one another, following the example of the hermit. However, when those animals came close to death, they would be unable to stay in the forest, but felt compelled to pass away outside the forest so as not to pollute the pure atmosphere of the place. Even the creepers and shoots of the plants in the forest coiled auspiciously in a clockwise direction. Later, after many aeons had passed, This place was to become the town of Kapilavastu, in the present-day Nepal, where the Lord Buddha was to grow up. These are some of the fruits of spreading loving-kindness, which appear even during the present lifetime. So, having spread loving-kindness in this way, we condense our awareness down, back to the center of our body again, taking careful note of the brightness, the clarity, and the feeling of peace and joy at the center of our body. In particular, we should take mental note of the feeling of well-being at the center of our body, remembering this feeling as well as we can, because this feeling of well-being is very important for us. It represents the state of progress in meditation that we have made up till now. If we can remember this feeling as well as we can, the next time we come to meditate again, we can start again from this feeling, and starting again from this feeling, we can continue to make progress in meditation next time from where we left off. So for the last few moments of this meditation, take a few moments to make a mental note of the state of your progress in meditation, remembering the feeling as well as you can. Now for a few more moments, each of their meditation practice in silence. Sabba Buddhanupavena, Sabba Dhammanupavena, Sabba Sanghanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavanto Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. In the early decades of the 21st century, there are many things that are changing. We have always relied on material miracles to achieve the happiness and comfort that we seek. However, the rate at which we are using fossil fuels is leading to them to run out, and experts believe that within 30 to 40 years there may be nothing left of the traditional fuels that we have relied upon for so long to support our high standards of living. At the same time, in many parts of the world, the poverty is widespread, especially where the figures for displaced persons worldwide currently stands at 65.6 million individuals. With the population growing exponentially, there will soon be insufficient food even for us all to eat. The limits of material solutions are beginning to make themselves felt. For example, the sense of powerlessness in the face of infectious diseases is an embarrassment to the progress of medical science. Thermal pollution, in terms of global warming, is causing the polar ice caps to melt and causing flooding in nearly every major city of the world. The ozone layer has been damaged by the release of aerosol propellants, meaning that in many parts of the world ultraviolet radiation is making skin cancer widespread in those of all ages. Its so-called progress continues in the same direction, we will not be able to sustain ourselves or our planet. Without intending to be too much of a doom-monger, it is obvious that something has to change. And it can be concluded that what we're seeing throughout the world is a natural part of growing and development of civilizations. When the pendulum of civilization has swung as far as it can in the direction of materialism, naturally it must start to swing back in the direction of spirituality. Why? Because never forget that our human being consists of two distinct parts, body and mind, both of which need to be sustained. If we neglect one part of ourselves at the expense of the other, eventually our individual health will suffer, and the same is true on the social and global levels. Change is coming for sure, but will it arrive kicking and screaming, or will it arrive much more gently? James Lovelock, the originator of the Gaia hypothesis, said that if human beings were to fulfill their potential gently, they would become like the nervous system or the conscience of the earth, integrating to make the planet conscious of itself. However, if we continue to pursue only material prosperity and ignore warning signs, we may become like a cancer that leads our planet to extinction instead. Perhaps with the advent of the so-called COVID era, we have more of an idea of how we can gently move in a more spiritual aspect of global connectedness. Evidence for such transformation has been apparent since long before COVID, with a change in attitude to world peace, an intermingling of Eastern and Western culture, and more enlightened views of leadership. And the good news is that meditation seems to have a role to play in all these aspects of the dawning of a new age. In terms of new attitudes towards the possibilities for world peace, fortunately mankind seems to be moving away from tribalism. But although we still value security and freedom, we no longer exclude the other because of differences of nationality, creed, race, or religion. We increasingly realize the limits of security and happiness from taking refuge in material securities, such as wealth or fame, and to a greater or lesser extent have rediscovered inner cultivation as an universal source of well-being and freedom that is independent of cultural differences. Just as the East accepts more Western ideas like human rights, the West is beginning to accept more Eastern ideas like meditation. Almost imperceptibly, there is a cultural shift on which is affecting people in every country. To be stuck in traditional culture leaves one vulnerable to exploitation by modern self-interest. But to know only modern culture is to lack the deeper tools of discretion. But with the best of both worlds, West and East, there is a possibility of standing on the threshold of something much greater than the parts. A sort of collective consciousness for the planet, where global connectedness can bring benefits both material and spiritual. In the old days it was necessary to renounce material comfort in order to attain spiritual knowledge. But more and more there is a possibility to balance spiritual prosperity with material prosperity, instead of swinging to one extreme or the other. The prospect of a new age holds out an optimistic hope for the future of the world, but requires people to take a decisive role in stewardship to ensure society can recrystallize in a new harmony of material and spiritual wealth. There is no law of nature to guarantee that humans will successfully make the transition to a more harmonious society without destroying themselves along the way. The future lies very much in our own hands. It is our own choice. If we are to succeed, we have to rely on certain things such as reducing our prejudices, especially ones which make us see ourselves as separate from others, and secondly, not just to do good ourselves, but to reach out with our practice for the benefit of others too. The thing that will make a real difference to the transition is the degree to which meditation is widespread in society. Meditation is the most direct inroad into spiritual experience. Meditation will help us to start recharging the spiritual batteries left flat by the scurry for material wealth. Where we have always relied on miracles of technology, meditation will start to create a few miracles of spiritual development for itself. Some people think the miracles mean extraordinary feats of power, floating in the air, walking on the water, or doing conjuring tricks. However, I would ask you, is it not more miraculous to see long-term changes that occur in people's lives, characters, or personalities as a result of their spiritual practice? None of these things happens with a fanfare of trumpets or a flash of lightning, but the changes happen in the manner of a quiet revolution. You can see them for yourself. They are slow burning, but after they have happened, people rarely relapse. Meditation will help people to get a different view of themselves in relation to the world, a view that is not one-sided, but has an outlook on the world that gives equal significance to all world views. For the reasons mentioned at the beginning of this session, when the quality of life in society is dragged down by selfish mindsets, then by the opposite token, if the number of people in society with peaceful minds increases, then it will make society and the world a more peaceful place. Meditation has a vital role to play in this connection. The well-being built up through meditation, in the same way that we have learned to practice the loving kindness exercise, will indirectly affect the people around us. If enough people do the same thing all at once, it will start to have a real effect. It is like if all the people in China decide to jump up in the air at the same time, they would surely cause a tidal wave. In the same way, if enough people in the world start to meditate and gain inner experience, this will exceed a critical mass, which will catalyze the world peacefully, even for those who never thought to meditate, through the turning point ahead to a new age of spiritual wealth and prosperity. It is often said that we are the I in sin. This is why, in the context of leadership for the new age, the more influence you have, the more critical it is that you expand your empathetic awareness. Supposing you are a bachelor or a bachelorette living by yourself in an apartment, and you think of no one but yourself, in fact no one would blame you for this. However, if one day you reach out and start a family, perhaps with a couple of children, if you still have not upgraded your mindset, if you are still just thinking about the food on your own plate, you would deservedly warrant being called a selfish person, at least by your own family. Really, before becoming the head of a household, you need to expand the compass of your mind to all the members of your family, so that you are as worried about the food on their plates as you are about the food on your own plate. In the same way, if you run for mayor of the city, you first have to expand the breadth of your mind to encompass the well-being of all the people in the city, rich and poor alike. You cannot afford still to be stuck in self-interest or even just thinking about your own family. Otherwise, you will be accused of favoritism or nepotism. Similarly, if you become president or a world leader, you can no longer afford just to be thinking about your hometown or even just your own country, because these days everything is interconnected, as is so painfully obvious from the spread of the virus, which, like many other things, has no respect for borders. Therefore, before stepping up to the plate as a national or international leader, you better first make sure that your level of empathy or loving kindness is broad enough to encompass every living being in the world. This is why cultivating meditation, especially on loving kindness, becomes more and more critical for leaders the higher up they go in management. In the meantime, applying your meditation through the principles of problem-solving mentioned at the beginning of today's session, you can summarize the framework for meditational problem-solving as follows. When confronted by a problem, never insult others nor try to harm others, because it will only make the problem worse. When confronting problems, be especially careful to exercise restraint in upholding your precepts and complying with the rules and regulations relevant to your situation. When feeling stressed, be careful to exercise moderation in your appetite, making sure you don't eat too much, eat too little, or imbibe alcohol in response to your woes. In spite of the stresses in your uptime, make sure that for your downtime, you have a go-to place that is peaceful enough for you to meditate and get a refreshing night's sleep. Finally, even though it may seem hard to meditate when you are going through problems, keep meditating in spite of those problems, because meditation in times of stress is 10 times more valuable for your well-being than meditation when the going is easy. If you can manage all of these interventions, rest assured that you will answer the description of the leader and problem solver needed by the society of the future. So let's turn now to look at some of the questions sent in by viewers. Here's a question from Jane Godfrey of Doncaster in England. She has asked, I want to recognize fools and keep them at arm's length, but I become irritated and find it hard to get over my annoyance when those I see as taking advantage, in other words, taking more than what they are giving or not backing up what they say with their actions. How can I overcome this self-righteous type response and maintain my own balance? Well, thank you, Jane, for that question. And in answer to it, I would say that if you want to avoid associating with fools in your everyday life, apart from avoiding social contact with fools, it will be necessary to give special attention to the following issues, and I quote from the Mangala Sutta as explained in the Temple's book called A Manual of Peace. In the case you have to associate with a fool, you need to be especially careful. Sometimes you will be put in a situation where you have to associate with fools even though you don't want to. For example, you may find out that your work boss is corrupt. If you refuse to have any part in their dealings, you might get fired. What should you do in such a situation? Well, if you do everything the boss wants, in the end you will become corrupted too. The best way forward to treat such fools is as if you were warming yourself before a fire. For a fire, if you stay too close to the fire for too long, then you get burned. If you stay too far away, you will be left out in the cold. Thus, just as with a fire, you need to keep the appropriate distance from a fool, not too near and not too far. Also remember that you can only afford to intervene with a fool in the case that you are sure that you have the capability and steadfastness to help them. Whether you can really help a fool or not depends on whether your own level of virtue is sufficiently steadfast to allow you to help them unscathed. If you are not yet sufficiently steadfast, then it may be that you need to keep your distance, even if they are your own relatives. If you come across a fool who does not respond to your interventions, you may have to resign yourself to biding your time and waiting for a situation to occur where the damage of the fool's actions becomes obvious. Only at that time will they become a little more ready to listen to your advice. In such a situation, you may need to be cruel to be kind, withholding your help or advice until it can truly make a difference. It is not really a case of self-righteousness, but certainly you need to work out if you are strong enough morally to help out a fool or whether you need to back off from the situation. The level of steadfastness you can bring to the situation will depend on how strong you are in avoiding unwholesome behaviors yourself, especially involving the roads to ruin, how strong you are in making a break with any unwholesomeness in your past, and how strong you are at continuously sustaining your cultivation of wholesome behaviors in the present day. When dealing with fools, in summary, you can say the ideal is to interact without transactions. Try to avoid joining up with fools, receiving things from them, or giving or lending them things. If you are looking on and seeing the people you love being ripped off by fools, do your best to open the victim's eyes to the truth of their situation, especially if they are off their guard, according to the duty of a good or a noble friend. Let me finish up with a couple of news items, one about merit making at the temple and a second about availability of meditation teaching in English. At the moment, as you probably know, despite having passed the peak death rate for COVID-19 in both the US and California, the activities of the temple are still limited to those we can share online, as the temple remains closed to the public with no monks going out into the community and no community members coming into the temple, until the risk of COVID-19 contagion has passed. This week is a little better than the preceding weeks, however, and since California has had a slight relaxation in its social distancing regulations, we are now receiving so-called curbside or drive-through donations of food and requisites. Anyone wanting to make a contribution to the temple, as long as you come with a group of less than 10 people, may make an appointment with the temple staff, and a monk will come down to the temple gate dressed in full PPE to receive the donation and give a blessing. In the meantime, although all of us hope the present situation will not last too long, the silver lining for the crisis is that there are additional or perhaps different ways in which temple devotees can show their support for the temple without attending in person. We are now entering on the second month where our temple has been reliant for its income on a weekly merit fund, whereby devotees can pledge and transfer donations of money, any amount you can spare, to be used for necessary things like food and medicine to keep the temple community going, with further details to be found in the temple's DIMC family line group, or you can ask about it by phoning up members of the temple staff. Basically, the convenient ways are mailing checks to the temple address or by bank transfer. In addition, there's also two things called Venmo and Zelle, which can be used to transfer money online. The special merits arising for those contributing to the COVID-19 Silver Lining Fund are that you will have a life free of obstacles and danger, you will gain mastery of all forms of knowledge, prosper in your duties, have special insight into Dharma teachings, attain purity with ease, breaking free of the defilements of the mind. You will gain wealth on a worldly, spiritual, and transcendental levels, allowing you to pursue perfections with ease all the way to the attainment of the utmost Dharma, and the whole temple would like to rejoice in your merits on this occasion. Paying attention to what's happening in the moment is difficult in the age of COVID-19, but meditation can also help us cope during these unsettling times. In this respect, here at the temple, although there are no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can log in to Dhamma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation, or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation, either live on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, or on demand after the event. Peace breaks are broadcast every evening between 7 and 7:30 p.m. between Friday and Wednesday. Also recently, Tipserine Indaganok OB and her team at the Meditation Circle in Georgia has developed a mobile phone app of English language meditation and Dharma teachings from various monks in our organization. It's just recently had a major upgrade to it, so there's a lot of new materials on it. But basically, it can be downloaded free of charge from the Google Play Store for the Android version and the App Store for the iOS version. And the name of the app is MindGem, spelled M-I-N-D-G-E-M. Depending on who is your favorite monk to meditate to, there are contributions from myself, Lumpy Sander, Lumpy John, Lumpy Pasura, and Lumpy Clint. There are about 10 versions of meditation instruction in English. There are also Dhamma teachings, inspiration from the translated books of the Venerable Dhammaccio, and a meditation countdown timer. So this session we have looked at problem solving and the New Age as they both relate to meditation. For my next online session with you, which will fingers crossed be a week on Sunday, we'll be looking a little bit more at meditation and self-transformation. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers again, even better than posting thank you or great talk or sadhu, which are all encouraging, you can move to the next level and try posting a few questions, and I will do my best to answer them on my next Sunday session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Continue recording your meditation experiences by keeping a diary while trying to root out any hindrances in your meditation. And hopefully, when you get that clarity in your meditation, you also will have a clearer idea about your own sense of meaning in life as well, moving forward. So for today's program, this is me, Ven.Nicholas, signing off for the session. So long, folks, and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Venerable Nicholas, for that valuable lesson. And thank you everyone for joining us today for our intro to meditation peace break session. Just as Venerable Nicholas said, tonight there would be a short meditation session, and the Venerable tonight would be Venerable Peter. He will be teaching meditation from 7 to 7:45 tonight. And as a few words before we go, do not forget to spend a little bit of time maybe spreading friendliness or loving kindness, as Venerable Nicholas has said, to those around us, to those who may need it, and to our armed forces who we are remembering on this holiday, Memorial Day holiday. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope everyone has a nice day. Take care.